Hey guys, it's May, and for today's on trend for this week, we are talking stencils. I know, I'm not big on stencils. Like, stencils kind of took me back to the 80s, and to a terrible experience I remember having with my mother when we decided to stencil our kitchen with strawberries. And it is etched in my memory that we took this one 12-inch long stencil with strawberries and leaves, and we went all the way around the kitchen and did a stenciled border, and it probably took us every bit of a week, every night after work and school for us to get it done. And so stencils have never been something that I'm very endeared to since then. However, it's big right now. Lots of ways you can use them, lots of ways in card making and scrapbooking. So we're going to look at some of those today. When I started looking at trends and doing research, I realized that stencils were big, and because of my anti-love for stencils, I don't own any stencils. So I started looking in my craft room and at my stash and some of my upcycle stuff to see what I could use for stencils. So let me show you some of the stuff I came up with. I feel like this one was pretty obvious. I purchased this from Saw Crafter's store when I was designing for her, and when I was her guest designer. And this is pretty simple. This is a piece of chipboard, and it's got a hexagon shape, and it comes, you poke all the little pieces out, and there you go. That's a stencil. I think that one's pretty straightforward. And I got to thinking, what else can I use? So let's look at some more things. This is a product. This is going to be tough with all these clear things, but I hope you see it. You can see my light reflected. But this is a product I get some of my stamp sets on, and when I order stamp sets to sell them, sometimes, depending on how I order them, they'll come on these big sheets and just be a whole bunch of them on one. You might even see this was from my bee set, and there's bees on it. I tried to clean them off, but they didn't come off good. But I want to show you what I thought. I don't know if you can see, but on this end, there they are, I punched out with a border punch some stitches using this Recollections punch. I just went through and border punched it just like we would do if we were border punching a card. But instead of going all the way to the end of the sheet, I just stopped about ½ an inch in on this side. And let me show you what this will do for you. Now I can take a piece of paper and I can put this little edge here, line it at wherever I want it, and I'm going to kind of center that edge. Once I actually ink this, you'll be able to see it. You'll be like, oh, there it is. Then I'm going to put some distress ink on it with just a dauber. I'm going to press, and then I'm going to rub. Now this is just using stuff you've got at home to make your own stencils. Like I said, I haven't run out to buy them, but they are everywhere. You will see that they are huge right now, these stencils on cards. And I just think that this is a super easy way to do it. And when I lift this up, there they are. Stitches along the edge of our card. Isn't that cute? So that's one way of getting a stencil if you don't have any. Just pull out some of your border stencils. Now one thing you want to be sure, or your border punches. One thing you want to be sure of is that this is going to punch the border without punching it completely away. Let me show you what I mean. This punch, for example, is going to punch completely away everything but the flowers. So it will look like this. And if you want to do some negative stencils where you take this area here, this might be the positive. I never know about that, positive or negative. But if you wanted to stencil over this, you certainly could. Just use a material that would, hold up for some stenciling. But that's not my favorite kind. Let me show you what I like. I really like the look of these dots, the way these turned out. I think that would be a super cute stencil to use. And of course, this is just a piece of cardstock so you can see it. But I used this border punch to get that. It's a big one. It's from EK Success, but it leaves that design behind. So what I'm going to do now is take this same piece that I already did the stitches on, and I'm going to cut this piece in half. The idea here with cutting them is to kind of expose some more borders for us. I want to make the most of this piece of paper, especially since I only have the one. Did you see how easy that cut? It's pretty amazing. But now, instead of just having 4 edges to make stencils, now I have 8. And if I cut it down even more, I could have more. Now I want to do that whole design that I like so much on this side. Okay, so I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to lay it into my punch, and punch just like we normally do. They punch pretty easy, too. If you're not strong enough, you might want to bring in some help to punch it, but they do punch fairly easy. So now I have holes there. Now I'm going to line it up on the side and do the same thing, just like we normally would do. This punch likes to hold on to my material for a minute. So there's that side. And now let's go do this side. Okay, so now this one piece offers me the stitching on one end, and now I have all of these holes on the other end. Let's see how they look on paper. I'm going to use the same piece of paper we used and bring this over. Use that same ink just so we can see it. I'm trying to get this pretty dark because I want you to be able to see it. Plus I'm using distress ink, which is not one of the wettest of inks. Okay, so let's see how this looks when let's see how this looks when we reveal it. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So now you're just taking material you have laying around the house, something you can recycle, and your punches, and look, now you have a stencil. And you could even, with this one, move it over with it being polka dots. Just being careful on your edging, not to get across to the other side. I'm going to put a piece here to protect what we did earlier, because you can always put a piece of tape or tape paper here. See how this looks. There you go. Look at that. A nice stencil that you're making right at home. Let's look at another way. I love how this looks. I'm really excited about this, but let's look at another one. Okay, so I have this whole piece left that I have not punched, and here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put a piece of white paper behind it so you can see it better when I'm doing this next portion. And now using a Sharpie, I'm just going to draw a pattern. And maybe I want this pattern to be a swirl. Something like that. Okay? Let's bring it in some in the middle. Okay. And now what I want to do is I want to kind of take the same piece and I want to dissect it like this so I can see. You'll have to just kind of go with me on this. We're going to just kind of make this kind of look like a snail for a second. I'm going to cut this away from the paper, or from the acetate sheet, leaving me a bit of a border. Now that I've cut it away to a smaller piece, I'm going to take my hole punch. This is my crocodile for memory keepers. Ooh, had stuff in it. Okay, and now I'm going to go to every one of those marks I made and poke a hole. I don't want that big hole. I'm going to use a smaller hole. So now I'm going to go to every one of these little crosshatch marks I made and punch a hole. And just everywhere that they cross, now I'm pretty sure I poked every hole, but here's how we're going to find out. We're going to bring our ink back and our dauber. And there you go. Now we have a little swirly circle. Isn't that cute? Of course you need to tape that off and get rid of that, but there's another way. So now I have another stencil I can use. And now let's talk about the one I think I'm most excited about. I want to show you this. This is some packaging material. This is actually from my crochet set I recently bought. And when you open this up, it had this entire flat piece of this plastic stuff. So remember that. And then also this. I have one of these twisty towel thingies. And this was in my trash can this morning. And I want to show you what I'm going to do with this. First, I'm going to dissect it. So now I have two flat sheets, and I also have this trim. And I'm not going to throw this away because that's fairly thick. I might could use that for another border stencil. Okay, so now I've got these. Now, I told you that I cut that other piece away that was larger earlier. I want to show you what I did. This is the same material that I'm fixing to show you. So you remember how I told you earlier about the piece to remember that I had cut away from that crochet piece? Well, this is it, and I put it on my Cricut mat, and I ran it through the Cricut, and I cut this leaf shape 4 times. Now, it did not cut completely through, but I think we're going to be okay. I wanted us to see this together here. If you will just kind of get it started and just kind of peel that away, it does come off. Seems to not be giving me too much issue. I just got to get my finger on it. And it peels right away from the plastic. Of course, you want to take your time. Remember, this is a stencil you're going to have forever, so there's no reason to rush. This is something you'll put into your stash. So take your time and get it out of there. If you wanted to and you had the patience, you could run back over it with an X-Acto knife. It's just barely not all the way through. But this is a pretty thick material. If you use a thinner material like I did in the beginning with the punches, I bet you wouldn't have this issue. It's coming out no problem. It's just getting my hands on it. If it was a bigger piece, this wouldn't be hard at all. The problem is going to be if you do a smaller, more intricate piece. That may take you a good bit longer than this. Now once you get it away, look at that stencil, and look, you even have this piece if you want to use it. Just need to flatten it back out, and you have that piece too. Let's see how this looks on paper. So I have this piece of white, and I'm going to just put this down here in the bottom, like so. I think I'm not going to use that Distress ink this time. I'm going to use this Juniper that I used yesterday. And just an ink blending tool. Let's lift that up and see what we get. Look at that beautiful piece we got. That's so pretty. Let's see what we get with the other one, just for fun. Let's take this one and let's lay it maybe slightly behind it. No, I don't think about it. Let's go up here just to see what it's going to look like. I'm going to lay it down like this. If you had the airbrush, one of those airbrush systems like with Copic or the new Tim Holtz one, that would probably really work well with this. And there you go. Look at that. Very organic. So, I don't have any stencils per se. I haven't purchased any stencils, but today we just figured out a way to make 3 different kinds. So you have from the Cricut using some upcycled material. You have using a hole punch and some upcycled material. You have the ones we made using the border punches. Don't forget those. And the chipboard, the kind that I purchased from Saw Crafter Store. Now, I feel confident you could do this with cardstock, a very thick cardstock on your Cricut, and then use it for a stencil. It wouldn't be permanent like these plastic ones, but it would work just the same. So, tell me what you think about stencils, guys. And stencils are really in. Start looking around on the internet. Look on Pinterest and see what people are doing, because stencils have just really blown up this year. And I hope I never have another experience like I did with my strawberries, but there you go. So on trend for Wednesday, stencils. Check them out and see what you can do to either make some from your stash or purchase some from online on some of these great stores where they're making beautiful stencils, and go ahead and get them incorporated into your card making. All right, I'll see you Thursday for more On Trend. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.